I do want to bring it back to what got us there, though, which is the patriarchy. So, can you give me some other examples?
Other examples
of how we live in a patriarchy today.
Oh gosh, what's the statistic? I don't know what the statistic is. Isn't there a statistic about...
Well, I think what she's trying to say with the patriarchy, I've taken a lot of like history classes and just sociology classes, that kind of thing. So I've actually learned a lot about it. Okay. Wasn't trying to show up there. I think that our society, since God knows how long ago, it has been a male-ran society. I mean, there's been so many instances. I mean, think about it. Like the whole stereotype of women stays at home, man like works, like blah blah blah. You know, men go to war, women stay and kind of take care of the kids. In my opinion, that's patriarchy, because that's kind of giving the men like this like higher role and like higher position in society. And I think that as society's progressing, it's becoming more progressive, and women are kind of, you know, the whole feminist movement, that kind of thing. But I think you can't deny that throughout history, women have been oppressed. You could also kind of
I would say, I don't think we should gender it, though. I think throughout history, men and women have been oppressed. It's really the apex fallacy. The patriarchy theory is the apex fallacy. You have a very, very small proportion of people at the very top which oppress everyone, both men and women. But you don't think that there's... So are you, just to make your point... I reject this idea of the patriarchy theory.
Do you support the idea of women have been oppressed in society? I think both men and women have been oppressed. Exactly. And I can actually... This is going to be the hot take here. That was a hot take. No, hold on. I can actually make an argument that men have been more oppressed. Please make your argument right now. Please. What? State your case, this Brian. Is such an interesting experience. Let me ask you a question. Just
hear him out.
No, let me ask you a question.
I'm hearing you out right now.
So throughout all human history, and I think that, you know what, this one probably squashes any grievance that I think women could conceivably come up with. Throughout all human history, what percentage would you say of military casualties, if you had to break it up between the genders? What is the percentage breakdown of military casualties? Well, obviously, so deaths and injuries. Obviously, a significantly more amount of men. 99.99999%. But that's also because in the past, women have not been allowed to. That's a privilege. Fight in the military. That is a privilege.
Do you think if women had been allowed, hold on guys, do you think if women had been allowed to join the military, they would be signing up in droves to get put through the meat grinder of war?
Well, it's also men literally like want to be in it. Like so many men, one of my guy friends told me actually that like all men at some point in their lives like fantasize about being in the military.
You're right. Mm-hmm. A lot of men do. Mm-hmm. A lot of men are attracted to war. However, this hasn't been a consensual thing throughout human history. Throughout human history, you've had so many emperors and kings that literally they will send soldiers to your house. They say, all right, Tanner.
Even in Ukraine right now, going on.
Ukraine right now, people are getting forced to fight in this war. Men weren't allowed to leave the country in Ukraine. You realize this. Women were allowed to leave the country. Men were not allowed to leave the country in Ukraine because they were forced to go to the front lines, right into the meat grinder of war. They were forced to die. This is not something that's happened to women throughout human history.
But women haven't given the opportunity to. I mean, you can make the argument that how many women would, right? Like, that's a good argument. But then you could also say women were not allowed to enlist.
All right, so World War III starts tomorrow. How many of you are enlisting?
Enlisting willingly?
Yep.
Probably wouldn't, but if they told me I had to go, I'd go. Suck it up.
You wouldn't have a choice.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have a choice.
You have to suck it up.
Her point is that women haven't had the option, so that's why it was all dudes.
It's also, I actually come from a military family, like my whole life, and sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. That's all right. My point was just simply that you guys are right. Almost all societies throughout history have been male dominated,
but a very small percentage.
It's by a very tiny percentage of men at the top who brutally oppress the majority of the men below them throughout society as well. And yes, women have gotten the raw end of the stick too, but like dudes have had it bad as well for a long time. And we've had more rights in terms of property and speech and stuff like that and voting, but it's been pretty bad for dudes for a long time too.
Those are big deals. Like those are legal issues that women didn't have rights to, and now we're taking away.
Women couldn't vote. Remember that?
I do.
Yeah.
I was alive back then.
What do you think about that?
Wait, about what?
Do you think that women, if you lived back then, right, would you support women not voting? Do you think that that's right and just? Do you think that that's a decision for the men to make, that women are not competent enough to vote? Because that's what it was.
Well, so actually, Eric, can you pull up? There's a infographic. Okay. Eric, there's an infographic. On
yes,
voting.
I know women can vote now. I'm talking about like however many years in history.
It's an important question.
Chris, go into the infographics.
Brian wants to move on to something else, but it's important.
No. It's related to the voting thing.
I'm not sure if it's been fact checked by Bill Gates' fact checkers. So.
Okay, so this is F11, Eric. Okay, so yeah, there you go. So percentage of population aged 21 or over eligible to vote. This is in the UK. So, but I mean, okay, so this is like pretty, I'd say amongst Western countries, this is pretty much the case. So you'll know this before like the mid 1800s, it was pretty much a very small proportion of men had the vote. This concept of voting is an incredibly new concept. Before that, it was just tyrants. You had kings, queens. They're the ones who had power. A very, very small amount of people had power. Yes, there is a bit of a discrepancy there from about the 1800s to the early 1900s, but there is actually a reason for that. One of the reasons is because, and I think we've seen it. So if you want to just go ahead and bring it back, Eric. One of the reasons for you need to go F11 in this StreamYard window, Eric. Thank you. One of the discrepancies, or one of the reasons for that, is because men were the only ones that were subject to military conscription. So the way that men got the right to vote before women is we had to go in the trenches and die, and we had a say. We got the right to vote and elect a representative who would be potentially making the decision if we went to war. Women, even to this day in 2022, they're not required to. You have to register as a man. You have to register with a selective service to this day. We are still subject in 2022 to the military draft. So that's the big thing. That's one of the reasons why we got the vote before y'all, because we had to go and potentially die for our country. Women were able to secure the vote without the corresponding responsibilities and duties. So you actually got, when it comes to voting, you guys actually have an advantage over men. It was never about equality. You got preferential treatment in actuality, because none of you are subject to the draft, even today.
But what if some women want to be subject?
There are men alive
want
today.
To be subject to the draft?
There are men alive today that were subject to the draft. They went to the Vietnam War. They're alive today, so some of them came back. They have probably serious psychological issues. A lot of them are homeless. A lot of them just didn't come back, and they're dead. Now, there hasn't been a draft in a long time, but we're still subject to it. And the way the world's going, it's certainly plausible that we could see. I mean, we see what happened in Ukraine.
Do you think that there's a World War III brewing? In your opinion?
Absolutely. Yep.
I don't know, but it's
no
comment. Even if war isn't likely, if we don't register with the selective service, we can potentially face criminal prosecution. It's
Do you think
felony.
That there's going to be a draft? Do you think that there's a possible
Yes.
draft that could be?
I mean,
I'm just asking out of pure curiosity.
100%. The military can't find enough able-bodied people right now.
Interesting.
Because it's still volunteer service right now, and they're struggling to hit their numbers.
My dad always says this, but I asked him this question the other day. I said, "Is it possible for there to be another draft?" And he told me he doesn't think so, just because of like the new way of fighting is just kind of like it's very technology based. I mean, I might be wrong, but
Gen 5 warfare.
Right, and so wouldn't that require less troops because
there's still going to be a draft. I mean,
you still need troops for a lot of stuff. Like if you're going in, you can do a lot of warfare using automated vehicles or robots or whatever it is. But if you're going into another country, like you're going to need boots on the ground. And
now this is me not knowing anything, so
okay.
this is appreciative of the information.
Yeah, no. And I personally think World War III is brewing. There's a lot of stuff brewing in the world right now.
Are you scared?
No, I have faith in God.
Valid answer. Okay.
I mean, if you want to talk about systemic oppression, to this day, men are systemically oppressed by the Selective Service. I know you're smiling, but the fact of the matter
it's
is,
a really important point.
If there was a war, we would be drafted and you guys would be exempt. Yeah. And you are exempt from having to register with the Selective Service.
Can I have another example other than the draft?
Another
with systemic.
We're more likely to be victims of police killings and police shootings and police brutality. We're more likely to be incarcerated. We're more likely to delete ourselves. We're less likely to get sponsorships for college. We're less likely to go to college. More likely to be homeless. That's a few.
Okay, can I say something really quick?
Sure.
A lot of those things, like, I'm not saying they're not struggles, because they are. I'm just saying that, like, a lot of those struggles are because, like, people in power just take men more seriously. And I think that, like, women's problems...
More seriously, we are the disposable sex.
Yes.
Men are the disposable sex. Women are valued. Women go to war, get killed, be a workhorse.
Yep.
But they do that because
us.
they, like, it's no secret that men are just, like, physically more, like, capable than women.
Well, that's
There's
part
a reason
of it.
These lights are on.
That's part... Different discussion. That's part of it. That's part of it. But the other thing...
Don't get it?
You're looking at this... Hold on, guys. You're looking at this through the lens of oppression, okay? You're looking at this like, okay, men throughout history haven't taken women seriously enough to put them on the battlefield, right? Well, the other side of the coin is that women have been highly valued throughout history for their ability to bear children and everything else that you guys can do that men can't do. You guys are very highly valued for that. That's why today we're still the dudes that get tossed into the meat grinder and you guys are protected from the fray, okay? Childbearing women have been extremely valuable throughout almost all of human history because without you guys, the race, the culture, the civilization, the tribe can't go on. We're expendable.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like people only value women because of their fertility. Like, they don't value their intellect. They don't value...
It's
like,
not that you're just valued for your fertility.
What do you value men for?
It's not that you're just valued for your fertility. That's an incredible thing to be valued for. Like, you guys have something that men don't.
Well, it would be nice to walk into a classroom and have, like, all the guys actually listen to me for once. Because personally, I don't know about you guys, but every time I've tried to say something in class where it's predominantly male, mostly in, like, my science classes and stuff.
Especially STEM, very much STEM.
You get talked over. People don't look at you the same. They don't take you seriously. They don't. And as a man, you'll never understand that. People don't take us seriously.
I'm sorry to hear that.
That's something that we can't
unfortunate.
necessarily, like, super understand.
But I can guarantee you a lot of women feel that same exact way.
But once you graduate and you have a what are you studying?
Psych and brain science.
Psych and brain science. I mean, there's actually affirmative action for women in STEM programs in the education system and also for hiring. If you're a computer scientist, software engineer, and you're a woman, you're getting a job.
I think that's great. But
that's a huge advantage for
But
women.
it's still not the attitude that is given to women. Even though they do, like, I do agree, affirmative action does help and whatever that, it's still the attitudes. Like, that's what I said when I said there's still undertones of it in our society. I still feel like women are disrespected by men and looked down upon from my personal experience and from what I've witnessed.
People look down upon all sorts of people. It's not just women that are looked down upon. Like low-value dudes.
It's a widespread issue.
Yeah, you're right. But low-value dudes, for example, I bet there's a million dudes that you guys have met and they felt like you guys never gave them the time of day and they'd probably have a complaint about that, you know? Like, it's just part of life, you know?
For instance, think about, like, a plumber, right? Like, what I was saying about the lights, and I was saying, like, didn't get that. Like, think the last, like, woman who is an electrician that you guys met, who is a plumber, who keeps society rolling in a lot of the just like municipal stuff that we have going on, like within our society. It's all men that are making like $60,000 a year. They're working like these blue collar jobs, wading through shit,
just the hardest,
telephone
shittiest
poles,
jobs
the worst
ever.
stuff. You like, it's not that bad here. Like, you know, for instance, there was like a huge windstorm here a couple months ago. And there was like linemen right outside my, you know, like door, working on power lines and whatnot. I guess that's not too bad. But you think about like, hey, if it's negative 40 out and there's a dude in Montana and like the heat goes out, there's a dude getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and below 40 negative, below zero, who's climbing up that pole, who's like getting power back on so that people have heat and whatnot. And that's pretty shitty. And he's also doing that for like $50,000, $60,000 a year.
And
I'm sure that's not fun.
I don't know. I literally do not know a single woman that wants a job like that, and that stuff is just left to the men. And it's kind of a raw deal, you know. Why don't chicks want those jobs? You know?
I want to add a little bit to this. I don't think we're trying to say that men don't have struggles, but I think the problem is that women also have struggles, and those struggles need to be taken as seriously as men's struggles.
Well,
And, like,
yeah, of course.
Not
That's
like
fair.
Both men
in
and women.
society, it just sucks that like
Well, actually,
as women, our struggles aren't taken as seriously, and
Well,
a lot has changed, but like it's still not completely equal.
Actually, I think women's struggles are taken far more seriously than men's struggles. There's almost no discussion about the struggles that men face.